Hello and welcome to this video on university shortlisting. In this video, I'll be discussing how do you go about shortlisting universities as part of your MS application. Now I've split this video into three parts, so please do watch all the parts. Now the first step in the university shortlisting process is profile evaluation. And by profile evaluation, I mean getting a fair and objective assessment of your profile. Understanding what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. And by strengths and weaknesses, I mean strengths and weaknesses of your profile and not of you as an individual. Now, to do profile evaluation, these are the factors that you should consider. The first and foremost is your GPA or grade point average. The second are your test scores. And then you should also be considering whether you have some kind of research experience, what kind of internships or work experience do you have. And this is how because this is the order in which universities will be assessing your profile. They would be giving most importance to your GPA and test scores, followed by other factors. So when you do your own individual profile evaluation, these are the factors and this is the order in which you should be considering them. Now let's take a detailed look at the first parameter, which is your GPA. Now when universities receive your application, they wouldn't be looking at your GPA as just as an absolute number. So they wouldn't be saying that, say, someone with a GPA of say 9.25 is definitely better than a GPA of 9. So they would be going into the details of your transcripts. And these are the factors that you see on the screen. This is how they would be assessing your GPA. I mean, they would be considering the GPA of the last 2 years as more important than the GPA of your initial years. So also they would be also looking at consistency in terms of your GPA. Say, for example, you have a GPA of 9, but then that is because your first and second year GPAs are almost like a 10 on 10, whereas in the second and third and fourth year you scored an 8. Now, although the average would be around 9, that is not something that would make a very strong profile. Similarly, they would also be looking at your scores in individual subjects. And again, say, for example, if you are applying for a computer science master's, then scores in relevant subjects would also matter. Say, for example, you have very low scores or maybe a B's and a C's in, say, most of the core computing subjects. Now, that would again not make a very strong profile. So, universities will be doing a detailed analysis of your transcripts and not be looking at your GPA just as a single absolute number. Now, what would also matter is if you have backlogs or if you have year drops, you have failed in multiple subjects, to a certain extent, that would also negatively affect your applications. And the last thing, which is not a very important factor, but the undergraduate institution that you graduated from also makes a slight impact in your applications. If you are from an IITs or BITS or maybe an NITs, then sometimes if you see students with a slightly lower GPA also manage to get in, whereas if you are from not a very popular university or not a very popular college, sometimes universities are a little stricter when it comes to grading your applications. Now, universities don't do, suppose in India you have a lot of universities which have affiliated colleges. Say, for example, you are a Mumbai University student and under Mumbai University there are say 15 colleges. It does not make such a big difference which college you are from within that university. But the overall university standards and the rankings and maybe their evaluation criteria matters to a certain extent. But again, this is not a very important factor. So just because you are from a top-notch school or a very popular or prestigious university doesn't mean that you will get in even if you have low grades or low scores. But yes, to a certain extent, the brand matters, but not to a very large extent. The next parameters that universities would consider are your GRE scores. Of course, if you are given the GMAT and applying to a business school related program, then they would consider your GMAT scores. But since most students apply to tech programs, when universities evaluate applications for tech programs, they pay a lot more emphasis on your quant score of the GRE rather than your overall score. So I'm not saying that verbal scores and AWS scores don't matter, but quant scores matter more than your verbal and AWS scores. Now, business school programs, however, prefer students with a balanced score, where they would want your quant and verbal to be both good rather than only focusing on the quant score. But generally, most STEM programs focus more on the quant score. Now the TOEFL or the IELTS score is required for application, but that is only as a qualifier. Every university has a minimum cutoff that they require for the TOEFL or IELTS. Some universities even have sectional cutoffs. But as long as your scores are above that cutoff, that is all that matters. I mean, they don't generally evaluate applications based on your TOEFL or IELTS scores. TOEFL or IELTS scores are used only as qualifiers. Now, here is a table that will give you an indication of the rank of the universities that you can target. Obviously, it would depend on the branch that you're applying to. But for most tech, engineering, computer science programs, this can be used as a benchmark. And here is an indicator of the kind of GRE scores that universities expect from applicants. Again, this is not an absolute rule as such, but this is just an indicator. GRE score expectations vary from branch to branch. As we all know that admissions to computer science is very highly competitive as compared to maybe some other branches, say like civil engineering or mechanical engineering. But this will kind of give you an indication of the kind of scores that you should have to get into one of the range of universities. So if you have a 325 plus, then obviously yes, you can target one of the top 25 universities. Now, having said that, what about universities that have waived off the GRE or do not consider the GRE at all? Obviously, in that case, you can completely ignore this table. If GRE is optional, having a good score is always a plus. But if the university does not require or does not consider the GRE, then obviously this factor is not going to be counted as part of your application. Then the emphasis is completely going to be on your your GPA, and maybe your other factors that we will be discussing later. Now, the other factors that universities are going to consider would obviously vary based on the program that you are applying to. For example, if you are applying to a research-based program, say a core MS in computer science program, then your research experience, the paper publications are going to matter more. Whereas if you are applying to a say MIS or an engineering management program or any other say business-related program, then having good internships or work experience is going to count more than having a research paper. So based on the program that you are applying to, these are factors that can actually help you strengthen your application. So in conclusion, your profile evaluation will be based on your GPA, your GRE scores, and other factors such as whether you have some relevant work experience, you have done some good internships, you have some research experience, you have some publications in your name. And based on this, the next step that I'll be discussing in my next video would be mapping universities based on your profile, like deciding which universities do you apply for. Okay, so continue watching my next video where we will be discussing these, and thank you again for watching.